Sorry about the tickle, folks. Hopefully I'll be getting it under control here. Hello my friends, welcome to StashBlaster Quilts. I'm Maria, and I'm here to help you make more quilts in less time with a lot less stress. So, this is not the normal setup, as those of you who've watched this before know. I have literally been reassembling my sewing room. I had the carpet put in, and just before I started the live stream, I was still plugging in components. So I haven't had a chance to adjust lights and all of that. So I'm going to do a little bit of that while I'm chatting here. But it's been a crazy couple of weeks. So, oh, see, that's much better. Let's see if I can move this one around, if that'll make it better too. There we go. You can see me, but I'm not in ghost mode. Anyway, so we're going to start with the tip for this particular visit. I'm going to update you on the quilts. I will give you the next round for the mystery quilt. And then I'll tell you about the home renovations that have been going on, the floorings. And we'll just do some chit-chatting. So the tip for this session is that I don't care who your contractor is or what type of work you're getting done, whether it's flooring like me, or if you're having a roof put on, or a bathroom remodel, those kinds of things. A general rule of thumb is that no matter what you're given as a number or anything, price or time, you multiply each of them by a minimum of 50%. So it will take at least 50% longer to complete the work, and it will cost at least 50% more than you expected. If you've covered that amount, you might get pleasantly surprised. But I always take my estimates and multiply everything by 1.5 just to make sure that when they tell me that it's gonna run over, that I'm not freaking out. Okay? So, as an example, actually, I'm going to do the house stuff first, and then I'm going to update you on the quilts because it kind of relates more the other way. Let me put on my PowerPoint here. This is the new carpeting, and the thing about this is it's a beautiful shade, but the padding is so nice and thick, and the carpeting is so nice and thick and soft that now I can't roll my chair. So I'm going to have to get one of those plastic chair rolly things in order to make this work. But that's not the worst thing that could ever happen. So I'm not going to complain. But it is a beautiful shade, and it should last the rest of the time we're in this house. I don't anticipate that we're ever going to have to do these floors again. And I'm going to tell you the story behind this flooring a little bit later. Other than the fact it was supposed to be done on Monday. It was supposed to take one day. They came in, they looked around, they said, well, we can't do it today, and they left. They sent a different crew in. They got it done yesterday. But what this meant was I had some haulers come on Saturday and remove some big pieces of furniture I didn't want anymore. And they filled my bathrooms. Well, they filled parts of my bathrooms, and then we filled the rest of Saturday. So I didn't have a working shower in my house. I do have a half bath downstairs, so we had the ability to use facilities. But it meant an extra day without a shower. It meant an extra day of just feeling grungy, because I've been working hard. I was taking out everything that wasn't major pieces of furniture, and so I was hot and sweaty, and so I was taking basin baths, which is definitely not my fave. So again, it was supposed to be done all in one day on Monday. Didn't happen, happened on Tuesday. 100% increase in the amount of time it took. This is my new bathroom floors. This is my bathroom, and my son's is about twice as long. Same tile. I love this tile. It's not originally designed for bathrooms because it is, yes, it's a pressed tile, and yes, it's just colored on top. But the pieces are offset, so it's like you're walking on a stone patio. Why put this in the bathroom? because it's completely non-slip. It was designed for patio work, but I felt a little bit of texture when I was picking it out. But once it got installed, I can see a lot more dimensionality to it. So it feels a little strange underfoot. I will definitely get used to that. But I can walk, I have bath mats down, but I could walk across this with completely wet feet and not have any danger of slipping. So I really like that turned out as nice as it did. So those are my 2 floors that I got done. There are 2 more flooring things that are going to come in 2 weeks. So that'll be the Monday and Tuesday 2 weeks from now. So hopefully I'll have pictures to show you about those then. Okay, so the tile floor I was told would take 3 days. 3. I said, "Are you sure?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, not a problem." So I figured 4. Took 5. I should have realized. So in both situations, I didn't have functioning showers that I could get to. So I went through the whole tile process. That was, since we didn't have to move anything in or out, it was just those 5 days. Because on day 5, they put down the grout, but you can't walk on it for another 24 hours. So it was 5 days. And then this was a job where the work took 2, but then I needed the extra 2 days to prep. So I have had a couple of weeks where I have been very glad that I haven't had to leave the house. Because even with basin baths, I never feel good. I can't wash my hair because of my neck. I can't do it in the kitchen sink or anything. So earlier today I had a choice. I could either potentially finish the hexagon quilt, or I could take a nice, long, hot, drawn-out shower. I chose the shower. So I know this isn't smell-o-vision, but I hope you can appreciate for me that I smell much better and my hair isn't all salty. And overall, I'm feeling like a human being again. So my entire upstairs is done. The color that I showed you, that carpet has been done everywhere. So my son no longer has a pink carpet. That just happened to be the color when we moved him from the tiniest of little bedrooms to a bigger bedroom when he got older. That's what he's been stuck with. So he no longer has pink carpet, and I got rid of all the wooden thresholds. Because part of our thinking is that if we wind up aging in place here, walkers have a real hard time with those raised thresholds. Now, we'll still have the problem going into the bathroom because there's a gray marble threshold into each bathroom. But at least going from room to room or room to the hall, we won't have to worry about that. It's, like I said, though, a lot more plush than I thought, so we're not going to have to worry about the walkers getting away from us because we're going to have to move it and step and move it and step. But overall, I think that that's fine. So my upstairs is done, and for all of the rest of the work, I'm still going to be able to shower. I'm going to be able to sleep in my bed instead of at the end of my couch, and that will also make me very happy. My couch has the recliners on each end, so Scott and I could sort of stretch out, but I find that the recliners wind up sitting kind of cockeyed because one side has an arm and one side doesn't. And my single recliner is one of the things that went when the big pieces of furniture went. Because I had 2. One was electric and the motor died. And so that was in my front hall. Because we were waiting to do a big bulk pickup. And then the older one that I had was one of the mechanical ones with the lever. And it started making crunchy, thunky noises. Trying to get up and down, and there was nothing in the mechanism, so we knew it was going. So I no longer have a chair for myself, so I'm going to have to go and get one. And so, again, because of the aging in place possibility, and the fact that Scott's in his 60s and I'm in my upper 50s, we decided that we're going to go for a lift chair for me. Not because I need a lift chair. It's one of those ones that fully reclines flat, but then also will tip up and over to help you stand up. And the thinking is sooner or later it's likely that one of us are going to do something really bad to a leg or need a replacement for a knee or something like that. And having that would be helpful. And who wants to order it at the moment that you need it? This way I'll have it if I have family members that need help standing at some point. It'll work for them. Chairs tend to last me a good 10 years. So, it just made sense. So that's going to replace it. But I need the chance to go shopping for it and then wait for delivery and everything else. And there is still the first floor to do. So 2 weeks from this last Monday, the carpeting is going to go in my front room and family room. There used to be a wall between the two, and we put in a big arch. And so that's going to all be carpeted, and then the kitchen and bathroom are getting some of that plank stuff. They told me 1 day for the carpet, 1 day for the plank. I am planning 2 days for each. Again, just 50% or double the time, and the worst that'll happen is I will not be unhappy. So that's the tip and why I did it. Okay, so the quilts. The white and blue quilt I was working on is almost completely bound. There's only a little bit left, I think, because that's in my bag to go to my guild to finish there. As is the big table topper with the triangles. That's in the bag to be quilted there as well. What I did with that, though, is I had used my binder clips as usual, and then I realized I wanted to be able to just fold it up and take it with me, so I basted it down. So my binding is basted to the back, and I'll still have to do a little bit of tweaking to get all of the pleats, the miters and stuff and all those weird corners to lie right, but now I can take it and just fold it up real quick and toss it in my bag and be ready to go and not have the binder clips either pop off or snag on each other or anything like that. When I'm working in my chair, the whole quilt just kind of floats around in a circle while I'm working, so it doesn't matter. And I just put them all on, and then I have a basket or a bucket next to me, and I just take them off and throw them in there, and then they go back on my wall over here when they're done. So those are those two. Other than that, I haven't been in here other than to prep for the carpeting. I did install some new shelving just so that I could take boxes of things and get them up off the floor, so it'd be less I'd have to take from room to room when the carpet went in. I've been rethinking how I'm going to do a couple areas here in my sewing room. So one of the things that I'm going to do is take the things off the shelf and put them in the guest room for now. I think I'm going to get another shelf. They only had 4 at Lowe's the other day, plus the one I had on the top already over the bookcases. And then I'm going to just, as things come back into the sewing room, they're going to go where they belong. And that'll make life a lot easier here. Because right now it's all kind of higgledy-piggledy. I had a plan. Knew exactly how everything was going to go out, how everything was going to come back. And then I was basically told by the carpet guys that I had to turn over control of the area to him, the entire area. They would call me when it was time to move the little things, because there were still things staged and ready to move in this room. But that was all that I could have input in, which is not what I agreed to with the carpet company. So the owner and I are going to go around on that one at some point. But when I get that all done, I will take you on a tour. This has not changed at all, with the exception of I did have an entire row on the floor of fabric as well. And so that all had to get picked up and put into suitcases so it could get rolled into the other room when I needed it to. But because these guys did what they did, it's going to take me about 3 times as long to unpack as I had originally intended. Stuff got shoved into random rooms. I had a plan for how I was going to put the things into the room so that they would come out and be able to put right in place, but instead I had to rotate things around. In fact, just to get There was a dresser right by the door, a short little dresser, and they put it all the way across the room, and then they packed all kinds of stuff in front of it. So it took me over an hour today just to clear my way to that dresser and drag it across the room by myself, because there was nobody else to help, in order to be able to start putting the things in that back corner that were in my bathroom so that I could get a shower. So I spent about 4 hours today doing something that should have taken me no more than 20 minutes. That made me pretty mad. So I have been steaming about this quite a bit. And the attitude of the installer was bad enough. In fact, he even told, when he was putting stuff back in my guest room, I said I had left it set up so he would know where the end tables went and stuff, so they could put things back, including where the dresser was and everything. And he said to me, well, it's not going back the same way. And that's why he put the dresser on the other side, because that's where he thought it should be. And just completely kiboshed everything. So that's why I am behind. But the hexagon quilt. Okay, I'm going to put this on wide view. I'm going to tell my computer to stop. It's trying to get me to do all kinds of stuff because it was unplugged and in the hall bathroom for this whole carpet thing. Okay. Let me clip this on. Here, sorry about that. I don't like having it on when I'm sitting because it tends to snag on stuff. So, we are almost done. I'm going to, oops, it's upside down. That's not helpful. Can you see it here? Okay. I'm just going to tuck it in here with my fabric real quick. Okay, so, I should get out pins. Pin it into the bolts, I suppose. But there we go. Okay, so all that's left is from here to here. That's it. Everything else is done. I'm pretty happy about that. So that's why I was saying it came down really close to, did I take that shower or did I finish this? So I am going to, I even brought my thread up. In the couple of minutes I had before we started, I was sitting here going as quick as I could to try to get it done. But that's about 14 inches, maybe 16. And then this whole top is pieced together and ready to go. Now, one thing I did want to do is I've had people ask me about the cardboard pieces. So what I think I'm going to do is switch to camera 3. Here we go. All right. And let me get a little closer here. Don't get seasick, anybody. Okay, I left some of these in here so you could see. These are all sewn together. Okay? And people said to me, well, if they're stitched down or glued down, how do you get the cardboard out? So some of these were glued and some of them were stitched. I have decided I am definitely a stitched girl. You could tell these ones were glued, and one way you know is because every single section had to come up in order to remove the cardboard. What's nice about the thread basted is I can put my finger under the edge, snag the cardboard, bend it, and pop it out. And then when I go to press this, it'll press perfectly flat. And then if I want to, I can always come back and remove the threads and then press it again. But with the glue, it's a lot more difficult to get those to lie flat. I'm going to have to basically iron it from this side because of the glued ones and make sure they're nice and flat. And then press it again from the right side. But because of the thread, I can just do this. Now there's another advantage to having done the thread basting. in a couple of these cases, like right here, you can see that my thread doesn't go all the way around anymore. It's because since I have so many different thicknesses of thread throughout this, of fabric throughout this whole quilt, not all of the pieces aligned perfectly. And so I could just take and undo one little piece so that it could flex over in order to sew together properly. So I'm going to have a much flatter, nicer quilt because any place that there was a problem with thickness, I could address it without having to either crank that thread so tight to close a hole or have the threads show or have a hole. So that made that a little bit easier to be able to make whatever little adjustments I needed to make and have the pieces all come together. You would assume that because these hexagons were all punched from the same punch, or if you get the die cut or whatever, that it's going to be a perfect fit. And it would be if all of my fabric was exactly the same and I didn't have any pieces like this one that are split, because then I've got double thickness here, which changes everything. So if you were doing this with just whole solid hexagons of the same weight, you'd be fine and you wouldn't have to worry about it. But I liked being able to ease some of that additional tension that I had in some of these places, and so I didn't have to worry about that. So just for amusement's sake, I am, let me see where I am in this process. Okay, I've stopped stitching here. So until these two are sewn together, I like to keep all three of these in place, but these other ones here I can pop out. Now, why would I pop these out before I'm done? When I go to stitch, I'll be able to easily crumple this up and hold all of this in my hand. The reason that I stopped going from the other side where I started was it started to be a full hand width, and I don't need to worry about it. I can start from this side and meet in the middle because I'm going to have that flexibility on both ends to be able to grab it however I need to do those last rows, last few stitches. So I hope that helped explain why the thread basting versus the glue basting for me. There are some people who exclusively glue based, and that's fine. And when I'm done, which will probably not be tonight, but will be in the next couple of days, then it's time to start thinking about embellishments and thinking about how I want to quilt it. Because there's a lot of options here. And one of my favorite quilting patterns is a water pattern, which sounds like that would be good. But since I'm also gradiated in my colors from light to dark, do I want to change the threads to match so you have to get up close to actually see the water? Do I want to just use a variegated thread in a few different groups? I mean, how do I want to handle it? I don't know yet. I have had several people tell me that I should add the glass bead bubbles from the mouths of at least a couple of the fish, and I am seriously considering it. I originally said no because fish don't blow bubbles unless they're sick, but these aren't real fish. They're obviously not real fish. These are cartoon fish, and cartoon fish blow bubbles all the time. So I may go ahead and do that because I do have some glass antique buttons that I could easily stitch on to give that bubble effect. So I might do it. And then I am going to, once I figure all that out, I will then have to quilt it and finish the pattern design. The pattern's about half done because I had to figure out all the pieces that are split in either 2 or 3 different colors and how that would all work. And so that work's already done. But I have to do weird things like how many yards of blue do I need? You know? And that kind of thing in terms of equivalency and strips. And so there's going to be a bunch of math to happen with this. But it's going to be worth it. And it took me less than a year to hand piece this. I haven't figured out exactly how long. That's another thing I want to do, just for my giggles at this point. from when I took the class on flat back piecing, which is not something I was doing before. If you would like, either leave a comment or send me an email at mail@StashBlasterQuilts.com. And I can show you the difference between the whipped edge variety and the flat back in terms of how to do the hand piecing in this particular case. When you're doing things like squares, then you're going to sew them the normal way, which is not what you're doing with any of these English paper piecing things. So anyway, leave me the note if you're interested. So, I was talking about the pattern. The pattern's almost done. So that's what's going on with that. A different pattern I've been working on is your mystery quilt. Judy, if you are on, I have to do the math to calculate whether the amount of focus fabric you have will be enough to do 4 of the large table toppers or not. You have some of the basic measurements for the squares, because you all cut 2 4-inch squares for each block that you're making out of the focus fabric and 2 out of the background fabric. So that's the easy calculation. But since there's an interior border that's going to use both background and focus fabric pieces, I will need to double check and make sure that the numbers all work out for you. So let me double check that math just to be on the safe side. Okay? So next step. It's a toughie. I need you to turn your squares into 2 half square triangles. So backing, focus fabric, right sides together, draw your line, sew on both sides. Now there's a lot of ways to make half square triangles. I get that. I'm specifically picking this one because you tend to have a little extra material. And we're not going to square the half square triangles. Okay? I'd prefer you to have a little bit of extra play in case you need it later. Okay? So, go ahead and turn your 4-inch squares into half square triangles. Okay? And so, you're going to have 2 of each pack. Gives you 4 half square triangles for each block. The smallest block is 9 squares. So, finished blocks. The next size up is 16, and the next size up is 25. And then, of course, if you're doing the lap size, it's 108 blocks. If you want, I haven't had a chance to do the math yet because of having to move all this stuff, and I'm going to be, honestly, the next couple of weeks, I'm not sure because I have to move everything downstairs. I might not get that math done with the newer sizes in terms of the yardage that you need. But I will get that posted as soon as I can come up with that. Okay? So that will be on the website. And the website. Scott has not been able to do it the way I want it done. Right now, round 1 and round 2, and I'm sure round 3 tonight, have their own tabs on the main menu. Later on, we're going to have a annual a quilts in progress or something like that type of label, annual quilt by year, and then the rounds will go in that. So if at some point you've been following it along and taking it right off the top line, and all of a sudden they're not there, they will be on the website. They will have just been moved into an intelligently named file. Okay? Because what I'd like to do is for each of the years go ahead and put the different patterns up that I did. So that's what that is. So round 3 should be going up either today or tomorrow. But again, all it is take your 2 pairs for each block and turn them into half square triangles. Okay? And you have 2 weeks to do it. And then I will give you round 4 2 weeks from today. So that's the mystery quilt. I think that's it in terms of the quilts. I have several things in the works that I'm working on for you guys to show you. But those are not ready for prime time. And again, with the house, things are taking a little bit longer. But the numbers for the mystery quilt look really huge. And I've had a couple people ask me even after I've explained it before. And the reason is that we're starting with, the block is starting with 4 4-inch squares. So that's 8 inches. But when the block is done, it's only 5 inches. We're going to lose quite a bit in seam allowances to get the center block that we're going for. So it looks weird. I've done the math multiple times. It doesn't mean I didn't get it wrong. I'm human. There could be something that I'm just missing. But as far as I know, those numbers are correct. There is, for the laptop, additional fabric that I believe I included for a wide border of the focus fabric. And so that is going to bump up the yardage as well. So kind of keep that in mind too. I think with the lap quilt, it made a lot of sense to have I think it's a 3-inch minimum border on the outside. But that's your call at that point. The table toppers, no, because they're already large enough that, that they're not going to fit all tables already. The 9-inch one, the 9 block one, finishes at like 21 inches, and then it goes up past 36 to go ahead and finish the thing. So, just so you know, okay? Okay, Judy. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. You've just saved me a bunch of math, and I like that. And if you change your mind later, you could always do something a little bit different. But anyway, so that's the mystery quilt. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and continue to work on the Hexie quilt while we chat. My sewing machine is still in my guest room, as is my thread, as is everything. Literally here, I have the fabric that didn't go anywhere. I have a few pieces that I did manage to bring in. I did get in all of my drawer units, and you saw those on the PowerPoint slide with the carpet. Those are the drawer units that hold my strips and squares. And I got the electronics set up, and that is it. So if it wasn't already on my walls, it's in the other room. So it could have been a lot better. I'm gonna be happier when this is done. But so I'm going to vent a little bit, if people don't mind. And I just realized I just lost 2 light bulbs while we've been here talking in my overhead. Okay, this is no wonder it's so dark. I was like, why is it so dark here on my fabric? And I can't plug that in because the power's not on yet. So I'm just going to deal with it the way I can deal with it. Anyway, so what I had done was I had set everything up so that my guest room and my master suite were emptied and ready to go, and half of my hallway was. The rest of the items from the master and from the guest room that didn't fit in my bathroom were in the hallway. And I have an L-shaped hall. So I had asked, when I originally was talking to the salesman about the carpeting, I said, okay, here's what I'd like to do. I don't care if they tear out both rooms and half the hall at the same time to make it more efficient. And all of my floors had to be screwed down more, because since we moved into this house 26 years ago, my floors have squeaked. Every single floor in this house squeaks. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't, walk out of the room without waking people. So I'm like, okay, I don't want these floors to squeak anymore. So every single piece of subflooring was going to get more screws. And there was a spot in my hallway where the subfloor had broken. You could tell because when you would step down, you would feel the piece of wood next to it against your foot. So I said, okay, that's going to have to get replaced, etc., etc., etc. So the first guys come on Monday, and they don't know anything about the repairs, and they don't know anything about the screws, so they don't have any of that stuff with them. He tears up the section of hall with the broken piece, and he goes, "Yep, that's broken." Like I couldn't have figured that out. And he says, "Well, we can't do it." So I called the carpet company back, and I said, "Okay, we need to get this done." He goes, "Well, okay, I have another team that can come out tomorrow. They can do the repairs, and they can do the carpet." And I said, "For sure in one day." Because when I spoke to the salesman, he had told me that these particular teams could have carpeted my whole house in one day, even moving furniture and everything, which I, of course, did not believe. But I said, "Okay, you can guarantee me," because your guy was out here, and he looked, he saw the furniture, he saw everything else, he saw how I prepped it. "You can do it in a day?" "Yes." So the guy shows up yesterday, different guy, and he looks around and he goes, "You have too much furniture, we can't get it done in a day." I said, "Really?" What you have to understand is that in my master, I have 5 small dressers. They're about yay high, from the floor. So that's like 3.5 feet, maybe. They're fairly small. They're 4 feet wide. And yes, there's 5 of them. But a big dresser and a high boy take up about the same amount of space. So it's a normal amount of dressers. There is a half-sized bookcase and our bed. That's all in the master bedroom suite. In my guest room, there's the bed, 2 end tables that are this big, 1 bookcase, and 2 CD racks, all of which are empty. Now, I will say that the bed in the guest room used to be part of a waterbed, so it's got captain's drawers underneath on both sides. So it's heavier than your normal bed to move around. But still, it's not too much furniture. This room had my little drawer end table and my table. That was it. And then my son has a dresser, a bed, a desk, and a bookcase. How is that too much furniture? That is a normal amount of furniture for pretty much every bedroom that exists out there. So I was already steaming a little bit. And then even though I was assured that they could do the guest room first, I wanted the guest room done. Like I said, do all the tear out, but then at least carpet the guest room first. Because then I could take the stuff that was in this room and in the hall, and I could stage it in such a way that it would be easy for me to get the stuff back out. But they took all the stuff that was in the hall, and they insisted I put it in this room, where I had all this other stuff ready to go. And then he said, "Well, we have to do the hallway first." No, you don't. I know better. So they did half of my bedroom, the hallway, the stairs, and then the guest room. I understand you got 2 guys who want to work on 2 rooms at a time, but you still could have and still given me the guest room first. Then he calls down to me and tells me, "Well, you can move your stuff now." So I moved it. Now, between the time that I agreed to do things his way and clear the hallway so he could do that, I get a phone call from the office. And basically I get, there, just do what the man wants. You have to cede him access to the entire work area, and he'll be able to get the work done. And I said, "No, you don't understand. I am willing to move things around, etc., But I had this set up with with a plan. And he's just like, well, that's why I'm calling, because you're going to have to let him do what he wants, or we're not going to finish today. I said, you promised me you'd be done today. In fact, you promised me you would be done yesterday. And he goes, well, that's why I'm calling you. And so, you're going to just have to let him do his job. Now, I'm a professional organizer. I understand logistics. But a lot of my clients don't. They might not have been as prepared as I was. But in any case, nobody should be talking to my clients like that. And if they talk to me like that, they've got to be talking to my clients like that. So, we've used this company before. They did a great job, so we've been referring them. And so I am going to have it out with the owner on this. Because if this is how if this had been a client's and I had known about it at the time, I would have gone down to their office and put my face in this guy's face and explained to him that you don't treat my clients like they're blithering idiots. I was so mad. I'm still steaming, you can tell. But yeah, I am definitely not happy. And honestly, if I hadn't already contracted for the downstairs and I don't want more issues with that, I probably would have already ripped them a new one. So when this is all over, I am going to have a sit-down conversation with the boss and the owner, they're the same guy, and explain to him exactly where they went wrong and why we will no longer be referring them. Because I'm not happy. But I get really tired of this, they're there, just do what he wants and you'll be fine. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention this. When you pull these out, yes, they were crumpled when I pulled them out. Okay, you can see that like that. They flatten out just fine if you want to reuse them. Okay? I just punched so many of them that I don't care. I'm not going to reuse these. Because I bought the new punch and I just went punch crazy for a while. So I've got plenty. I have the punch. I'm not going to worry about it. So that's a situation where I'm going to just throw them out. But it would be up to you what you want to do with them. Actually, I'm going to put them in recycling. Especially like these ones that I don't know if you can see. Here, let me put it back on camera 3. Sorry, camera 3. Some of these have numbers on them to let me know that like 823 was 1/3 blue, 2/3 green. So that wouldn't be usable in another quilt. If you put it upside down, then if it got wet, there would be a chance that it would transfer to the inside of the other fabric. And if it's a light color, it's like, why worry about it? Just chuck it out. Most of these, though, I didn't write on, so I certainly could if I wanted to. And yes, I do have another hexie quilt planned. And I already have the first probably 400 hexies done. But that's another story. Anywho, that one's going to be modern. Where I wanted to go with this was that, yeah, it happens to everybody, especially the whole, the guy knows best. And like I said, one of the things that ticks me off about it is because it's going to take me a whole lot longer to do put my house back into shape because of the way they did stuff. So if this has happened to you, you are not alone. It happens to everyone, including professionals. But what I don't want you to do is to just let it sit. Like I said, I'm letting it sit until the rest of my downstairs is done, because I would still have to pay for all the materials and everything that they ordered. At that point, I can't afford to not have it done. So I'm not. When I got a note from the owner saying, "Hey, how's it going?" I did not respond. I didn't tell him it was going great, but I also didn't tell him that I was mad either. And so we are going to go through a punch list, and he's going to understand exactly where things went wrong. But more than anything that bothers me is that attitude. And that whole, just let the man do what he wants and everything will be fine. So, if something like that happens to you, do yourself and all the rest of us the favor of not just ignoring it and then moving on when it's over. If you want to wait till it's over to go ahead and then confront the owner, whomever, that's fine. But please don't let it just sit there and let them not know that there's a problem in their shop. When I talk to clients, especially when I'm doing like an assessment, I will tell them that I'm always part of the team. If there is any problem with anybody in my company, if anybody does anything that they're uncomfortable with, or that they don't think they got treated properly, not that this has ever happened, but if it does, call me, I want to know. No owner is going to want you out there, particularly like on social media, or just spreading it around if you play bridge, or whatever it is you do with other people, quilting groups, spreading around their name as a bad company. No owner wants that. Even if they agree with the idiot that said the bad thing in their heart, they're not going to want it spread around that this is how they operate. And so that's important to keep in mind. You have more power than you might feel that you have. Of course, we have an added whammy that we tend to live longer, so we wind up being alone as well. And so not only do you have your age against you at that point, and being a woman, but they think that you will just not say or do anything because you don't want to look dumb, because they'll make you look dumb or feel like you look dumb. And we can't let that happen. It's really important that we make sure that we protect ourselves and others and keep our power. There's a lot of people out there trying to take our power away from us. Not just in the recent politics, but it's been the case for a very long time. And if you give up your power to people, they will happily take it and do their best to never give it back. And that's not who we should be. As women, we are more than half the population. As women, we are more than half of the people that care for the younger generation as well as the older generations. We take care of people. That takes a lot more strength than swinging a hammer or toting up accounts or doing any of these other things. So if you're not happy with how you're being treated by an attorney, I had an attorney that I asked a question because I had read about this proviso, which I thought was interesting, that the children can be held responsible for the medical bills of a parent even if it's not set up that they're accepting such responsibility. So not like they're a co-signer or anything. And there is a proviso that the state could come after you either to get back Social Security money or any number of things like Medicare, Medicaid, those kinds of things for a parent. And I said, what? Because my mom was sick at the time, and I knew she didn't have a lot of money, and I wanted to know what my risk was. Not that I wouldn't take care of my mom. Don't go there. But I wanted to know, is this something I need to start saving for just in case? Because I don't want to have to spend my retirement, in a Medicaid bed because I paid off all of my mom's medical bills. And I don't want that to happen to my son, especially since I have one child and there's two of us. And he looked at me and he said, well, it's nothing you should worry your little head about. If something like that came up, we'll talk then. But, I don't think anybody in Virginia has ever had that applied. And I said, oh? I said, can you look it up? And he goes, we don't need to do that right now. After all, I'm on the clock, and I don't want to charge you for that. I said, oh, so will you look it up for free later? And he said, well, no. He said, I would have to send you a bill for that time. I said, well, then do it now. Because he was just trying to slough off my concern, which could have been for a lot of money, as not worthy of him taking the time to look it up and explain it to me. And so I basically verbally got in his face, and I explained to him that not only am I not a moron, but I have a megaphone. And I would have no problem spreading around that he doesn't treat his female clients well. Now keep in mind, Scott was in the room at the time. Scott's my husband, if this is your first time here. And when he asked a question, he got an answer. So there is still a bunch of people out there, and you can blame it on age or whatever, but there are still a bunch of people that are running businesses right now that don't treat women as well as they should. And we should make a stink about it. So there you go. That's my rant for the day. Oh, there is something else I can show you. There was somebody, because I actually have a needle handy, because I'm going to take it out of the quilt. When I was at quilt camp, and I was going to be basting, and I said, darn it, I made the wrong knot. And she looked at me and she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I made a quilter's knot, not a messy knot. And she goes, what do you mean? So why don't I show you how to make a messy knot and how to make a quilter's knot. Let me get some thread here. I'm using the thread on my cards because this is what I brought up, because this had all the colors. If I got to the different fish and things, I wanted to be able to switch my colors while we were chatting. So let me use this ugly brown, but it should show up good against the white tabletop here. Just unwinding a length. And putting in slots. Alright, we'll switch to camera 3. Alright, so all I'm doing is I'm going to thread the needle. It's a little hard to do because there's a lack of light, so I fold it over, I pinch it, and then I just put the hole over the thread and slide the needle down, and I'm threaded. Okay. The time to make messy knots is like with basting, when you want a big honkin' easy to spot knot to be able to pull your basting thread out later. So what I do is I dampen my finger, and then I will wrap the thread around my finger like twice, and then I just roll the thread right off my finger, just like that, and then tighten it down, and it's a big, ugly, messy knot. And that will be very easy for me to yank on later and to go ahead and pull the basting thread out, and it's easy to see. Okay? So that's my messy knot. Now, the quilter knot that I make, you take your needle, and your thread end, and I put it like this, and then I'm going to go around 3 times. Now, my knot is a little larger than some people. Some people only go around twice. And I snug it down so I just have that little tiny little tail sticking out. I don't know if you can see it. I think you can. It's just a itty bitty little thing right there. Then I pinch the wrap and then pull my needle through, just like this. Keep that pinched while you pull it tight, and you'll get this small knot right at the end of the thread. It's got that little bitty tail think you can see it. Okay? Now when I'm stitching, let me grab one of these cardboards. When I'm stitching, and I want to end, okay, we're going to imagine I've stitched a lot. I take a little bit of a back stitch. It's hard to do on paper without it tearing up. A little bit of a back stitch, like that. And then I pull it through. Now, that is technically a knot in sewing, but I don't trust that enough. I will often go off into my seam allowance and do some travel stitches. I'm just going to do one here. And then I'm going to put on my third kind of knot that I do. I'm going to take my little back stitch. This is going to be big just because the paper's tearing. Okay. That. Okay. So I take my back stitch and I pull it out until I have just a loop. Okay? And then I'm going to go through the loop. I'm going to hold on to the big loop here with this hand, like this. Now, I tighten down the small loop, like that. So I still have the big loop I made in my hand. Okay? Then I dive through that hole. And then I tighten the whole thing down. And this is what I did on my hexagon quilt. I don't know why this keeps going in and out of focus. So at each corner, I did some of that original one where I would take a stitch in the corner, then I would take another stitch and then dive through the hole, and then I would do the next side. And when I got to where I needed to change out my thread, like right here, you see that? That's that third knot I was just talking about. You can see it right there. Come on, focus here. Here we go. So that's not a pill, that's the knot. And so I came in from this corner, I took a couple of traveling stitches, and I did that number 3 knot. That's going to lock in everything just to make sure that my thread's not going to come undone. It's in there good and solid. And then I would start my next thread coming in on an angle, take 2 of those stitches, a regular stitch, and then another one that I dove through, and then I continue sewing. So what happens is that all my corners are anchored in all 3 directions really well. If one of these seams pops, it's only going to open that 1-inch gap. Okay? It's not going to run the whole width. So this seam, this grouping that I'm doing now that's putting the 2 halves together, it's not ever going to completely come undone. It's only going to come up undone in 1-inch segments. And those you can repair. When you have the whole thing starting to come to pieces, that's a lot harder to repair without people being able to tell. So lock it in the corners and then finish off in the seam allowance just to give that little extra knot for security, and that helps quite a bit. It's a few extra stitches. It does take more time over the length of the quilt, but overall I think it's well worth it. Okay, it is almost 8 o'clock. If you are not a subscriber, please consider becoming one. You can always email me at mail@StashBlasterQuilts.com. Ask me any questions you'd like there or here in the chat, and I will answer them here if I can. So please like, subscribe, comment, all of that kind of good stuff. I would really love for this thing to take off so we can have a little bit more vibrant of a community here. And I will see you again in 2 weeks. I'm here the first and third Wednesday of every month from 7 to 8 o'clock. So have a wonderful time, and hopefully I'll have pictures of my carpet, which is a different color, downstairs, and all my new plank flooring. So thanks for putting up with all the home renovation stuff here on my quilting channel, but I figured you might like to know what's going on. Alright, and I'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.